Hello, degenerates, and welcome to the first official Wild Ride review. This is actually something that I always meant to do with the stuff that I want to talk about theme parks, but it's just like I never really got down to something that I wanted to do at first in terms of reviews. But I think I'm going to kick it off with this one, and it makes a lot of sense if you guys checked out the title. This is going to be my review of the Bourne Stuntacular. This is a brand new show that opened up in Universal Studios Florida, and it replaced the former Terminator 2 3D attraction that was over there. So I will say that I am going to be doing non-spoilers. If I do any, I'm going to be talking about that at the very end. Though truth be told, there's not even really too much to talk about on that end. Um, but we'll see. I'm gonna say probably not gonna be any. If there is, I'll give a verbal warning. You won't see a visual one, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, so basically, I'm gonna break down my thoughts of it. What I thought of it overall. Did I like it? Would I recommend it? Basic things like that. So before we talk about the Bourne Stuntacular, I'll talk about Terminator 2 3D real quick. Basically, all-time classic that was there. A lot of it consider it to be the second or third best Terminator movie out of all of them, because it continues the story of Terminator 2. Does a really good job with that. Really good like actor integration, and then of course the performances from everybody that was in Terminator 2 do a fantastic job with all the roles that they did for the show itself, and still had one of the best 3D effects I have ever seen in my entire life. Definitely, like, they could have updated the screens a little bit more, but that was like really about it. It held up surprisingly well throughout all this years. Like, it was really kind of like one of those timeless things. Like, the only thing was like these CG like flying head robots looked kind of bad, but like they even had like physical props for them too. So like when Arnold would grab them and all that stuff, it actually would look really good. But the CG definitely aged very poorly. It was basically like high def PS1 graphics for at least those robots in particular. But you know, Overall, absolutely loved that show. If you guys never got to check it out, unfortunately, watching videos of it is never gonna really do it true justice. And that's also kind of one thing that's sort of nice about the Bourne show is there is no 3D aspect to it. So even if it does get lost to time, you still will be able to have roughly the same enjoyment just by having a camera and looking at it. In one aspect, it will be preserved a lot better than Terminator was, because Terminator relied on the theater, and it also relied on the ability of having the 3D as well, which is, fortunately, that effect of 3D is just not going to be able to be something that you can recreate in your home very easily. So with that said, Bourne Stuntacular. Honestly, I'm still very shocked that this even got made, because a lot of you guys watching may not even know what the Bourne series is. If you guys are older watching this, then you'll probably be familiar with it. It was like a spy action series that Universal was producing for a pretty long time. At least I believe it was Universal, and they were popular in like I think it was like late '90s. Early mid 2000s, and then they tried to, and it was starred Matt Damon, and then they tried to do a reboot with Hawkeye, and yeah, no one cared about that one. It's like once that came out, it's like that series was completely done, and because it's done, that's what makes it even more shocking that this even happened, because it's like they're not even acknowledging that reboot exists. They're only talking about specifically the Matt Damon movies within the Stuntacular itself. So it's like the Bourne that you're supposedly following on this one is the Matt Damon one. Um, so it's just like that kind of makes it all the more confusing. I don't know if Matt Damon like wants to go back and do the series some more. There might have been murmurs about it, but it's just like there's not like besides Matt Damon himself, there's nothing about this series that makes it stand out or like has like an identifiable brand. If you compare it to something like uh, 007, so like James Bond and all that stuff, there like James Bond, you at least have the music, and then it's like general like iconic looks and like things that the character has. Like he's supposed to be like a really suave spy most of the time. And then just like the overall visual aesthetics that were like kind of created with like the really famous opening and all that stuff, it's like there are very easy nods that can always make you understand that it's James Bond, but you don't really have that with Bourne. Like there's no music that I can listen to and tell you, okay, that's definitely from the Bourne series or something like that. or like, specific action set pieces. So I'd be like, okay, yeah, it's definitely from the Bourne series or something like that, or like specific like iconic maneuvers he always does. It's just like, it's like just three films about like the progression of the character from what I remember. Because like Born Identity, he doesn't know who he is because he's something like amnesia, and then Born Supremacy is like kind of just continuing that story to more, and then Ultimatum's like kind of like the conclusion of all that stuff. They're good films, but it just kind of sits in that like one category there. It's like you don't really think much about it besides like, yeah, that was good, that was well done. It's like, nothing you're going to remember for the rest of your life, like nothing that iconic. It's just well done movies. So then this got announced to replace Terminator 2, which was like one of the all-time like most iconic films out there. And because of that, and like because it was a beloved show, it did have a lot to live up to. So I had seen some leaks about the show and potentially some things that could be going on. So from those leaks that I saw, I would say like most of them ended up not being true, but like aspects of it did. I don't know if they had like cut back the budget or something, so like that's why it's a little bit shorter scale than what might have been leaked before. But that's kind of all up in the sky, and only the people that worked on it would really, really know that stuff. Um, but I figured technology wise, it should be good. Action wise, they do have a lot to work with. And that's pretty much it. There is a very loose story of that you are following him and supposedly uncovering the truth behind whatever happened with him during, I think, across all three films. I'm not even sure about that. And you're like going through a virtual simulation. So to at least give my background of experiencing the attraction, I did do it twice. So the first time I did it, it actually broke down on me like very close to the very end. Like even the stage manager came out and said like, hey, we had like one more scene left before you left. Unfortunately, we can't boot it back up. So that was really funny to see. And actually like the context of that is really funny too. Cause like it made me realize something when I did my second showing where I got the full experience and I got to see it from start to end. No hiccups at all. But there also are going to be like some things. So while it is its first month, they, it broke down. They are still working out a lot of the kinks with this thing. So if you do see it anytime soon, don't expect it to run like 100% when you're there. Like there's a very good chance if it breaks down. And if it does break down, at least in my case, it might be different by the time that you get there. They actually did hand out fast passes that you could use for Hagrid's. So that was pretty neat. So, if it does break down, it's not going to be the end of the world. If anything, it might be better that way. And then, you get to see some hilarity where whatever the actors are paused at that moment, too. And some things that you normally wouldn't see. And they do talk about some behind the scenes stuff, too. At least the stage manager that was present at the time did that. So you can learn a little bit more about the technology going behind it. Because that's what's really cool about it. Basically, don't go in this show expecting like any engrossing story or anything that you're going to remotely care about. But you will see like some of the most striking and impressive technology you've ever seen used for a stage set, and just like a lot of really cool concepts that are done with an action show. If anything, I would say go into this like experiencing a tech demo that like a theme park firm wants to show off, or like a stagehand firm wants to show off like what are the possibilities of storytelling that you can do with this technology in a live stage performance. That's really the best way to look at this. Because in this show, they have like the most high def screen that you are ever going to see. Like when you go there and you first get in the room, you see like a stone wall in the background. But I had to do a double take because it's like it looks like an actual like stone wall. But like if you just ever so slightly like look at it, like you'll realize that it's just a TV screen. And I think most people don't really realize that until the show starts. And when they do like this one scene, which is like the very beginning, there's kind of like this whole fight scene that happens, and it's like basically there's a crowd there surrounding just like a regular cage match. And they have actors, and then they have actors on the screen itself, and the screen itself is so good and just like so like the resolution's so high that like the actors themselves blend in with the like virtual actors in there. Like they can be indistinguishable all the time, and it's like sometimes you have to like look at it twice, and be like, yeah, no, that was the video and all that. So they did a really good job with it, and I really can't wait to see like what they can do with this technology in the future, whether it be for a theme park attraction or just like even like a Broadway production. Like I'm honestly really looking forward to see what they do with that. They also do a lot of like really cool perspective changes. So like one of the things that they'll have is like they will have like moving sets going throughout this. And like with that screen in the background, they're able to do like these perspective shifts. So it's like they might have like a tower, and then like it starts rotating, and then the background rotates with it. So it feels like you're actually doing like a whole zooming, like swooping shot all around this thing. And that stuff is done really well, really convincing, and like for a lot of people that are like really thinking about it, it's pretty jaw-dropping technology wise. The other thing too is because this is happening during COVID, I'm not sure if the actors themselves have to hold back. So certain actors, I think it's like the actors that are performing strictly by themselves, they are not wearing masks. And then the actors that do have masks are the ones that are doing the stunt choreography or getting close with each other. So they have masks. And I feel like with their stunts, they're also somewhat holding back with like how hard they're punching and all that stuff, or like how quickly they're doing it. Like you can definitely tell it's like very deliberately fake choreography when you're watching it. And I think that is just mostly due to COVID. So that's something that I wouldn't really fault them for at the moment. I think it's just kind of like a matter of the circumstances that we're in. But the way that they interact with the set pieces and a bunch of the things they can do is really neat. The other thing too, I should give a warning about, like you're seeing a stunt show, so you should expect loud noises. But they do have like those firecracker guns, so like those things are extremely loud in those things. So if you are very very sensitive to like very loud like fast noises and all that stuff, you might want to avoid this show just because of the guns. If they didn't have those, I'd say it'd be fine, but because of that, a little iffy. Another really cool thing that happens too is that like you have like these two like head CIA officials that are there, and they appear on the screen and they appear in person as well. And one thing that's really neat that they do to kind of add like more convincing to the whole thing is that like when they are on the screen, they're actually acting in front of like a real-time camera at that moment. So because I saw two different shows, I did see two different actors play those roles, and I realized that when they were on screen, it wasn't a pre-recorded thing. It was actually an actor acting out the role right there. So that will like kind of give you like more of a reason to go back, and it does help with the whole immersion thing, like especially with like the live actors that they have in the screen. So it's like they're really trying to blur that line as much as they possibly can. Again, just like showing off like how good the technology is with this stuff. But yeah, like, so with all of that being said, surprisingly, the conclusion of it, I feel like, is the weakest part of it. So to kind of highlight how I got to this, like, feeling a bit more is, I remember I talked about that, my first experience, it broke down, and it broke down, like, right before the final scene. And when I did get to see the final scene and everything play out, I felt like the scene before that, the technology and the set piece for that was a lot more impressive and convincing than the final one that they decide to end with. And I felt like the ending that I got the first time was actually the better ending compared to what just like ended up like closing out the entire show, at least in terms of the effects. So I feel like they kind of dropped the ball there, but like it's not enough to really detract from the whole experience. So either way, I definitely say it's worth experiencing once. It's definitely a fantastic excuse to like escape the heat, because like it's really hot out here right now. It's like 95, 97 pretty consistently. So, you'll be indoors for like a good 45 minutes during that whole thing. So think about it being like going through the carousel of progress, except you're standing for half the time because you have to wait before you get into the theater. And yeah, it'll really open your mind to like things that you can do with technology in terms of like visual presentations. I'm not sure about like how your average guest is really going to think about all this. I know like for the most part, like the reviews for it have been very good. I know a lot of my friends that have seen it have also really enjoyed it as well. But it's just like, I'm not sure like how much people are going to have the wow factor without like really understanding all the technology going behind the scenes there. Because like I think that's what really makes it cool. or otherwise, like, you're not going to really think about it that much, and it just might be like, that was kind of neat. And I think like more people are going to come away with that than kind of being like, really impressed with all the technology that goes into it. But yeah, the actors did a good job. The set pieces are interesting. The visuals are really good, but like it just completely falls flat on the story because you do not care if like any of these characters like live or die or anything. Like they could have just had like a double agent just like shoot them all at the end, and like people just be like, what? And then it like nobody would think two things about the Bourne series ending right there. And that's kind of like the one issue about this is just like this is not a franchise that's going to sell merchandise, and it's not going to just really have that lasting impact that you'd probably hope for out of having a show or an attraction like this. It's not like where it's like Waterworld, where the show itself is so good that it makes up for the fact that it's Waterworld. But then again, this franchise is not that bad either. So yeah, I would say I would probably give this like a 6.5 to a 7. I'm leaning more at least to like a 6.5 for terms of attractions. Not a waste of your time, but like nothing that you really need to prioritize yourself to see. It's like if the park is very busy when you're there, or you really need to escape the heat, this is the perfect thing to go through. It's like your perfect mid-shelf attraction to see, and I do think like it fits very comfortably in there. While it is not quite a good replacement for, not a worthy replacement for T2 in my opinion, it is a perfectly serviceable replacement. It's not like Hagrid's replacing Dueling Dragons where it's like, okay, I'm going to miss dragons, but that was amazing. But it's like, you know what? It's not the best, but it's not that bad. I'll take it. It's one of those things. It's inoffensive. Inoffensive is the best way to sum up Bourne Stuntacular. So with that said, have you guys been able to experience the Stuntacular? Have you watched it on video? What are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's an insult to T2? Let me know. Do you care about the Bourne franchise at all? I imagine you probably don't, but if you do, please let me know why you do. If I have to revisit those movies, I definitely will. So yeah, this is gonna be my first review. I'm not sure how I'm gonna approach going through all the Universal and Disney attractions. I will definitely do that at some point. But like I also want to do like some more analysis videos on the attractions themselves rather than just like straight up reviews of everything. This one was probably like a little bit long-winded, but the more that I do this, the more that I'll figure out my flow with this stuff. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure to leave a comment below, like it, dislike it, whatever you feel like doing. And with that said, take care of yourselves until the next one.